So this is John Reed of JohnnyRP.com. For the SCNotties entries for 2011, I did one on a few underrated movies, but I thought about doing one on books, and I realized it'd be a lot harder and would take more time. But I did thought, for those of you who are really interested, I would share with you a few books that have impacted me over the years, specifically in terms of things that might relate to the enterprise in some way, as far as basically a lot of us now think of ourselves as essentially bloggers and enterprise storytellers, trying to share stories about our projects to build networks and connections, and to share information, and maybe even have an impact in some way. And then a lot of us, I think, are also trying to understand how it is we can negotiate our lives creatively and financially to have the greatest impact, but then not be dependent upon institutions outside of our control to have the impact and autonomy that we want to have in this world. Certainly, life is too short to live at the behest of enterprises beyond our control. So here's a handful of books we're checking out. Into Thin Air is a classic by John Krakauer, who happens to be a fellow Hampshire College graduate, which is a school I graduated from. And it's about the horrific season on Everest where all those mountaineers died a number of years ago. But it's a great nonfiction story, and part of the theme of the book is sort of the ethics of reporting and the elements of subjectivity in perceiving events. And those are all critical issues when we look at how to blog and how to report on events. So there's, I think, a real lesson there. Another book about writing that I would strongly recommend is this Compendium, Telling True Stories. And to be honest with you, I think my mom got this book for me. And, I read it with some reluctance just because it was from my mom, right? And yet, it's really a terrific book. Just looking at the art and craft of nonfiction from so many different angles of some of the best writers who have ever written. And nonfiction is really evolving, and there's so many different forms. And blogging really is one form of that. But when you blog, you want to think about things like the role of objectivity, and how do I tell a good story, and what are the ways of immersing yourself into a story, and then when do you step out of the story. And this book is full of good lessons around that. Free by Chris Anderson, maybe the essential handbook of the digital economy, and why today's smartest businesses profit by giving something for nothing is the subtitle. But I look at Free as a really important book on the digital economy and how it's impacting so many industries, and to some degree how we can harness it to improve our businesses, but also how it's dismantling institutions in certain ways as well. And we've seen the impact on newspapers, for example. So the economy of free, how to basically take advantage of it and not be victimized by it. And his book isn't really a how-to guide, but I think it's an essential intellectual framework to begin meditating upon how do you navigate this new economy. These last two are a little bit different. One is Your Money or Your Life, which came out a number of years ago, I think in the 90s. But it's an essential book on the foundational concept of money essentially is an exchange for life energy, right? So basically the ultimate commodity being time. And so it has less to do, this book, with how much money you make, but more, can you create a sustainable lifestyle, and can you get certain expenses under control, for example, so that your life energy is better spent. And to me, time is truly what we're all gunning for in terms of the caliber of time that we can devote to things we really care about. And this book was foundational for me in terms of understanding that. Now, some of the practical recommendations in the book are not things I would recommend. So with any of these books, you have to have a discerning eye. And that certainly is the case for this book. Deepak Shock was The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. You're probably astonished to see me pimping a Deepak Shock book. And to be honest with you, I don't like any of his other books at all. But I do like this one. And I don't fully agree with the beautiful karmic world that Deepak has created in his book. But I've seen some flaws in his philosophical belief systems by watching a lot of amazingly talented, beautiful people struggle in the world. But what I will say is that I think that this book is a really great reread. It only takes a little while to read it. You can cover it on a plane, and every time I read it, it kind of reorients me towards what is the purpose of what I'm doing, and kind of just sort of blowing the roof off what is possible in terms of having an impact on the world and aligning how it is I can make a positive contribution that fulfills my sort of deeper sense of fulfillment and longing, but also has good financial ramifications. And I think he ties that up about as well as anyone. So those are a few book recommendations from John Reed, JohnERP.com, in the spirit of the Snotty Awards. So I'm not submitting this video because it's a little bit too long.